Hi everyone, and welcome to Jane Talks Real. It's nostalgia time once again, and I'm going to be talking about Fort Boyard. Fort Boyard was a challenge-based game show that began in 1998 and took place in the titular fort off the coast of France. It was in the same vein as the Crystal Maze, but with more fantastical challenges. It was hosted by Melinda Messenger and her cleavage, and she would guide teams of 5 around the fort. Boyard, the master of the fort, was played by Leslie Grantham, who always gave me the creeps. For soap fans, he was Dirty Dan in EastEnders, and for non-soap fans, yeah, just give it a Google. Anyway, Boyard was a grumpy dick, and he would set challenges for the teams who would have 40 minutes to find the 4 keys to the treasure room, and then clues to a code word that would release the gold. Once the gold was released, the team would have 2 minutes to grab as much as they could and get back out of the room before it would fill with tigers. Not gonna lie, I thought that if the team didn't make it out in time, they would get eaten by the tigers. Other residents of the fort were the professor, who lived up in his watchtower, and he would pose riddles to the team. When you were after a key, a correct answer would grant it to you, but if you ran out of time, he would hurl it into the sea, which happened a lot, and another member of the team would have to swim for it. Later in the episode, when you visited him, the answer to the riddle would be the clue word, so even if you ran out of time, as long as you remembered the riddle, you could work it out later. There was a distinct noise whenever someone walked up the steps to the watchtower. And if I hear that noise while I'm walking on metal steps, I'm instantly transported to Fort Boyard. There were Jacques and Jules, 2 gentlemen who would take the contestants to see the professor and also keep an eye on the time of games and hold on to any keys collected. The team had 40 minutes to complete their quest, and how did they know when to start and stop? Well, that's Monsieur Labor, who would ring the gong to signal the beginning and end of the time limit. It was also his job to remove any contestants that were locked into the games. Yes, you could get locked in. Still feeling those Crystal Maze vibes? And he would take them to the dungeon, which was basically a cage on the wall where Boyard could laugh at them. There was no buyout system for the contestants. I think they would just return to the group after a certain length of time. Finally, there was Antoine, who was the safety expert when it came to the games that involved being harnessed in and being up high. He was most prevalent for the final clue game where someone would have to bungee jump off the fort and pick up the clue from their feet. Some contestants would do it, while others refused. To be honest, I think some people just wanted to have a sexy sounding French man whisper encouragement in their ear for several minutes. So that was the main gang. So let's move on to the games that I remember the most. Aside from the Professor's Watchtower, keys could be won in a variety of games, but 2 of the most physical were the rolling beam and the conveyor belt. The rolling beam was usually done by the girls, and I wonder now as an adult if it was because when they laid down on the beam to try and cross it, it made them super booby. Anyway, this one was hard and the slightest movement would fling them off. The conveyor belt was a bit more complex. Someone would run the conveyor belt, getting Travelator flashbacks here, and pick up buckets of water from the ceiling. They would have to fill the pipe with water until a key rose to the surface. It was pretty physically demanding and the falls were often brutal. I kind of want to put the Benny Hill theme behind this game. Another game once you were strapped in by Antoine involved climbing along the outside of the fort to retrieve a key. You couldn't return without it, but take too long and you were locked in. This happened more often than not because the timing was really tight. The sword game I remember being difficult too, with a player having to pull a sword out of a block, which was a task in itself, but then they had to swing it to cut the rope holding the key. The success rate on this one was pretty low. The first 20 minutes were spent getting the 4 keys, and if they failed to get all of them, one of the contestants had to be sacrificed to the dungeon in order to get the missing key. This contestant would be stuck in the dungeon for the remainder of the time, missing out on all challenges and the treasure room. If however they were super good, and this didn't happen a lot, often by answering the professor's riddle correctly without taking a dip in the sea, they could save time and collect 5 keys, trading 1 in for a clue in the second half of the game. When the players were introduced each episode, a little bio would come up on the screen including what they hated. If you picked spiders or snakes, you were in for a treat because there was some on-theme punishment from Boyard, as he would put them in the spider cage or the snake pit. Both games involved picking up the animals to try and find the clue on one of their bellies. I'd have been fine in the snake pit, although I think it was harder because the snakes moved and coiled around each other. But I hate spiders, so I wouldn't have wanted to go in the spider cage. But the spiders weren't the only things in the cage. It was more often than not this box of scorpions that held the clue. No thanks! If you said you were afraid of heights, you could end up being catapulted into the air and expected to read the clue from the roof as you tried not to pass out. A clue game that stuck with me was the head chambers. It was very I'm a celebrity, get me out of here. A contestant was stuck in the floor up to their neck and had to pedal their way through a series of chambers. In each chamber that was filled with bugs and other nasties was a clue word. After each chamber, they would shout out this clue word to the rest of the team and they would cross it off the list until there was only one left. There was another game that involved moving a cage contraption into the treasure room and picking up 2 keys to open the box in the cage to get the clue. But the tigers would more often than not sit on top of the cage and halt progress. Good kitty, nice kitty. I loved Fort Boyard, but there was something sinister about it. Now, rewatching it as an adult, I know why. It kind of gives me Saw vibes. An overseer who wants to play games with people while his apprentices run around doing his bidding, putting people in situations that they are not okay with, and look at these 2 games and tell me they're not straight out of a Saw movie. So once the team had collected all the clue words they could, they had to work out the word that connected them together. This was the treasure word, and once in the treasure room they had to stand on the lettered tiles and use cannonballs if there weren't enough of them and spell out the answer. Once they had done this, Monique would turn the golden tiger head, and if they were correct, the gold would come pouring out. It was then up to the contestants to get the gold out any way they could, with as many trips in and out as they wanted to during the time limit, with many teams opting for the use one of the women as a bucket technique. Not every team got the treasure word right, and when the tiger head was turned, the door would start to close and they had to get out quickly. This happened so infrequently though, because even as a child I could work out the treasure word with just a few clues. If the team wasn't sure though, they could sacrifice up to 2 players to get extra clues. They would stick their hand in the tiger mouth, getting themselves immediately handcuffed to the thing, but a clue would be their reward. Once the treasure was won, Shark and Jules would tip it onto a scale, and it would convert into a couple of grand of real money, and Boyard would storm off like a grumpy dick. I can't sign off without talking about the Fort Boyard PC game that was next to impossible to get through. It was like PlayStation 1 Harry Potter levels of difficult, and it was kind of creepy too. You weren't playing games with Melinda Messenger cheering you on. I think you were washed up there and had to survive the night or something. So there you have it. That was Fort Boyard. Did you watch this one as a kid, and what were your favourite challenges? Did you figure out the code word every episode? Did you also have the impossible PC game? Let me know in the comments or come say hi on social media. If you enjoyed this video, then please like, share and subscribe. Join me next time where I'll be talking about a super retro dungeon crawler. I'll speak to you soon, and thanks for watching.